Okay, welcome back to, I think now video 11, or what do you want to call it. We're starting to get into the double digits here. Made heaps of progress on the car, and this week we're going to be working on the rear end. So step one, we're going to have to dismantle everything. Step two, paint. And step three, obviously reassemble. I ordered all the bushings and stuff as well. They're in the background there. Now, there's one thing that we do need to modify with the rear end is take the torsion bar out. The torsion bar connects the sort of left rear to right rear section, and instead of using a spring, the torsion bar acts like that. So we have to remove the torsion bar because we're going to be running coilovers, and the torsion bars are going to be useless because we won't be able to lower the car with it in. We also need to make a little paint booth out the back, but today I'm just going to start stripping everything and cleaning everything up ready for paint. Painting everything ourselves in a little homemade paint booth out the back. So I'll get started, start stripping everything, start cleaning everything, sandblasting everything, and prepping it for paint. So I just started pretty much disassembling everything piece by piece so I could clean and then put it in the sandblaster. Okay, so that was actually really easy. It took like 2 seconds worth of work to get that bearing out and the inner bearing, so all the bearings really. There's just one little piece to the puzzle left for this rear. I don't even know what you want to call it, trailing arm support, whatever it is. So it's just another bushing. Really don't need to show you how to get it out. Pretty self-explanatory. And then when that's done, I'm going to do a bit of a clean up because I've made a mess everywhere. So in terms of completion, the whole rear end, would you say, is disassembled, ready for cleaning. So that should be pretty simple. It's all just going to go straight in the sandblaster really. Now I think I'm missing some bearings. Now I only bought some inner bearings. I'm going to need some outer bearings with the casing. So I'll see if I've got them. Otherwise I'll have to order some before we can reassemble everything. So a bit of a shame, I think I forgot something. However, we can install all the goodies, all the power flex bushings as well once everything's painted. So I'll finish that off. I'll go check if I've got that bearing and then start to clean up a little bit. Okay, I just had a look upstairs with all the parts I've purchased. Now, it looks like I've ordered, I think I've ordered the wrong wheel bearings. So I didn't realize there's an inner and outer wheel bearing for a whole rear assembly. So I'm gonna have to go and order some of those, but they shouldn't take too long if they've got them in stock, probably maybe 6-7 days from Pelican Parts. They're really good, and Heritage Parts Center if they've got them in stock. So just need to pay for shipping again. That sucks, but it is what it is. I'll have to order some new ones regardless. So I'll get started on cleaning up and we'll go from there. The pile of stuff just there. What I got to do is any parts that had bearings and stuff, I'm gonna have to chuck in the parts washer to get rid of the grease before I chuck it in the sandblaster. Okay, so I've gone ahead and put the rear trailing arm in the sandblaster, and 2-3 hours later, just because of the rain at the moment, it's too much condensation in the air, so it's just clogging up the sandblaster a bit. So this is what we're left with. It's obviously way better, but it's just taking too long, so I'm gonna have to come back to it probably tomorrow when the weather's a bit better, because obviously it runs off compressed air and our compressor's outside, so it's sucking up some condensation with the heat that it's emitting. But yeah, overall though, the trailing arms are looking brand new, so I'll have a think about how we're gonna paint them and if we're gonna paint them and what sort of finish we're gonna go for overnight, and I'll come back to it over the weekend. So yeah, overall, we didn't get much progress done, and I've made a complete mess, as you can see, so still a bit of work to do, but yeah, again, we just have to keep chipping along, just take my time and do the best I can really, because I don't want to leave no stone unturned, if that makes sense. And I did end up getting synchros. They have arrived, so I'm just currently waiting on a first gear synchro because they sent me four synchros, but I only need 3, and they sent the wrong one for first. So that's them here. Just got to put them in now, and that's the 5th gear one. So I'll rebuild that later, and all the bushings are there ready to go. So positive. We'll come back to it over the weekend. Change of plan. So yesterday I pretty much stripped a whole corner and sort of learned how to do it before showing you guys, which is probably the smarter way to go about it. So I have a whole corner stripped. Basically what I'm gonna go do is go through the whole process, making sure it's good, and then show you guys how I've done it, which is a much better idea than trying to figure it out as I go along. I also made the trip to Bunnings and Repco and got some parts and stuff for painting, and also re-greasing some components such as the CV joints. Components to build a little sort of paint booth outside. I already had this 2x4 tent, so it's going to be perfect. Extraction fan is a must. I also got some like paint sheets, I don't know what these are called, like big plastic sheets basically to wrap around to make the sidewalls, because the sidewalls were like 150 bucks. And yeah, I'd rather use that and get that dirty. And also a bunch of paint, some tape, and just some general stuff to rebuild the rear end. So basically, I'll probably show you guys how I've built the DIY paint booth, and then I'll paint it without you guys watching me stuff it up for the first time. So I've just finished setting up the tent at the back here. As you can see, it fits perfectly, so great find. It's a 2.4 by 2.4 tent, so it fits perfectly. What we're gonna do now is raise it to perfectly 2 meters, so then we can wrap the plastic that we've got on the inside around, just to protect from the paint and all that. Seeming as it is in this like perfect spot that doesn't really move anywhere, tying down will be pretty easy, and it's going to be nice and out of the wind, which is what we want. So we'll get started on that. I think we're going to tie it down first and then wrap the outside. So let's get at it. Okay, so we just finished up with the walling. It turned out quite nice. A bit different than what I thought we were going to go with, but it's working and probably did a better job at it. So I'll show you inside. So as you can see, we've got walling all around the tent, if it will focus. And what we've done is use some specialized tape for this sort of plastic sheeting, just to double up the strength, and just cable tied it to the actual frame. So it's pretty good in here. There's no wind, cozy, and the whole idea of it's just to reduce the overspray. So I'm just gonna add the extraction fan just to get some nice air in here as well. And yeah, and start painting some stuff up, see how they turn out. And tomorrow for me, which is probably the same video for you guys, you'll see the painting in action. Progress has finally been made. I've pretty much finished the other corner that I've been doing and sort of learning how to go through the process. I'll show you what I've done. I'm still yet to rebuild the axle, but we can get started and I can show you the process of the other side and how I did it. So I'll show you what I've done so far. So as you can see, everything's looking quite nice and new. Spoilers, I guess. But yeah, the paint booth's working a treat. I'll show you how that's working now once it will focus. The extractor fan's working. I put a bar up in here to hang all the products that we're spray painting, so we've got some stuff drying. But yeah, it's working really well, super happy. And I think when we take it down, because of the weather, it'll be easy to pack up just the way we did it. So we'll get started. I'll grab the other box and yeah, we'll start tearing into it. Okay, so step one is obviously disassembly. So we'll disassemble the brake caliper completely into 3 different components, the housing, the actual piston, and the mounting bracket. So we'll get started on that, and then we'll move to the axle. So like I said, there was sort of 3 main components to the brake that you had to disassemble. Now in my case, it was really rusted, so to take all the pins and the retaining springs out, it was quite difficult, so I had to spray a lot of WD-40 and get the hammer out. swear, every time I think I have something down pat with this car, another curveball is pretty much thrown at me. Pins that hold the brake pads in, they were rusted and it took forever to come out. You would have seen that, but oh my god, it was such a pain. But anyway, it's all done now, so everything's separate for the caliper. So what we're going to be sandblasting are these two pieces here, the pins, the spring, and the retaining clip. So we're only going to sandblast those two parts for the caliper just because I don't want to redo the brakes. They were working, they were fine. So I know I've gotten all this way and I'll probably regret it down in the future, end up rebuilding it, but for now I don't have the parts and I just want it done and out of the way. Paint time, finally. So I'll turn this exhaust fan off so you can actually hear me. There we go. So we'll hop into my little tent I've got back here. What we're going to do is go over it with some edge primer. So this stuff, just to give it a nice foundation to apply the high temp brake caliper paint to. So we'll get started on that, do some painting, and let it dry. So what I've done also is with the pins and the retaining clips, I've gotten a piece of foam, well styrofoam really. As you can see, I've just sort of dug once it focuses, dug the pins and stuff into the foam. Also the spring, you can't really see it, but it's just a bit of a base where I can use bolts and stuff on there to paint them a lot easier. So we'll let that dry. I'm not going to show you really the process of the 3 to 4 coats, I'll just show you the result. I won't show you the process of like the 4 to 5 coats, pretty boring anyway, so we'll start stripping the axle and get stuck into it. So with the axle rebuild, pretty much I just wanted to disassemble it completely, respray everything pretty much, and re-grease it. So the main thing was with these axles, there's a retaining C-clip that you need to take out just on top of the bearing. Once you pop that out, you should be able to slide the bearing straight off. So just in the parts washer now, and it's just time to scrub everything up, get it clean, and sandblast the selected parts such as the axle, and then from there we can start painting. Finished up all the masking with the parts, so I just use normal masking tape for all the metal components and this special plastic tape for taping the boots up. This seemed to work really well when I did the other ones. So I'm just going to hang it up, start painting, and hopefully tomorrow we start assembling. So I've just spent the last hour or so this morning just starting to paint everything. Now it's time to rebuild the axles, so we'll go step by step. What I did to rebuild the axles, the other one turned out really nice, I'll show you now. Turned out literally brand new. So we'll go through step by step on rebuilding it. The first step is to clean out all the bearings. So we've got the bearings here, obviously the housing and all the bearing balls, so clean them perfectly, can't have anything on them, and then once you do that you can put them back together. So the biggest thing is when you're building these bearings is aligning them correctly. It's the hardest part, but once you get your head around it, it's pretty easy. So you grab your housing, there's a line on the outside, so if you face that upwards, that signifies where the CV boot goes onto. So you put that facing upwards, you then locate the inner part of the bearing, I don't know what it's called. Now there is a tapered part, you probably can see, that needs to face outward, so you want to face it down. So the flat surface is facing upward. You grab your outer housing, whatever you want to call it, and make sure the flat surface is facing upward as well. So everything has to be facing upward. Now this is where the tricky part begins. As you can see with this inner part of the bearing, there's a big part and a small part. You need to face the big part, right, with the corresponding small part on the outer part of the bearing. So that should be sitting in correctly. Make sure it's all lined up and you're happy with it. And then you want to grab 2 bearings, right? You want to put one in and then the opposite corresponding side. Now make sure you line it up correctly when you put it back in. And it should be free flowing. If it's not, you've done something incorrect. And all you want to do is start installing the bearings. You might need to put a bit of gentle persuasion, I like to call it, which is just a soft hammer. If it gets stuck, I had to do that with the other bearings because they were quite old. So like this, it's stuck now, so I just tap it in, push the other side in, and it's in. And you just want to do that for all the bearings if you can't get them in. And it's not a big hit, it's a soft hit. There you have it. There's the installation of a 944 bearing. Pretty simple once you get it right. And it should be free moving on the middle part as such, as you can see. That means it's been installed correctly. Now if it's not, you've obviously lined something up incorrectly. Do the same thing for the other side. You don't really need to watch that, it's pretty boring. Just make sure the parts are really clean. I can't stress that enough. Okay, so here comes the messy part, is actually rebuilding the axle itself. So I've got 2 essentials that you three things actually. Number 1, definitely gloves, anti-seize or copper, I think it's called copper ease in this case, just Penrite stuff. And obviously bearing grease. I'm using Molly grease, 3%. It's actually really good, everyone recommends it, so I'm using that. And yeah, maybe some rags as well, so 4 things. So we'll get stuck into it, grab a bunch of rags and some gloves on. Okay, so the first part is actually re-greasing the bearings, so we'll get stuck into that. The main thing is put more grease than you need. It's better to have too much than too little, so I just pack it in as much as I can, and then when we actually install it in the car, I will top it up. So as you can see, I just pretty much started packing the bearings with grease, and I really made sure the grease got in between the bearing balls, so I pushed it in there and packed it as much as I could. That's the main thing. I then went ahead and applied some anti-seize to all the splines on the axle. Okay, anti-seize on now. So there's a little washer in some of the older 944 axles, as you can see like this. It's actually got a spline on it, so you've got to make sure you put it on the right way, right? Because it's kind of bent. You'll see what I mean if you've got it. What you've got to do really is make sure that the concave surface is facing towards the bearing. Yeah, so basically it's just a spacer to stop axle slop. I think that's what it's called. So make sure you put that on. If you can't get it on, heat it up. So after you get that weird washer on, it's now time to install the bearings. So make sure it's facing the correct way, where the ribbed line is facing towards the CV boot. Again, that C-clip was a pain to get on, and you really have to crimp it on and make sure it clicks in. Once it clicks in, it's good to go. That was such a messy job. I got grease all over the tools and stuff, but it's all done now. I've just put some Ziploc bags, like I said, over the ends. I will be topping the grease up when I put it in the car, just to make sure it's nice and full. Like I said, better to have too much grease than too little. And yeah, so that axle's all done now. We can put it away. Finally, like I said, some progress. So that rounds out this video. I was going to show how I rebuilt the rear brakes, but I didn't really rebuild them, just put them back together. But I'll show you what we've completed. So both sides are now done. It's looking awesome. You can see the paint actually turned out really well, especially on the black stuff. The rear brake paint's not the best, but it will do. The video was a bit jumpy back and forth between days. I think I'm going to sort of keep this style though and actually complete a few items and finish things before I post it, because that gearbox video, the previous video, wasn't that crash hot because we were just cleaning the whole time. So at least now we've rebuilt some stuff, made it look really nice, and you guys can actually see the process of it. Yeah, everything's sort of done now. It's looking really good. What's left is just to take those extra pieces, such as the rear torsion bar carrier, to go get powder coated and same as the sort of rear control arms or the trailing arms or whatever you want to call it. So that's pretty much it. The car goes to paint hopefully in a couple weeks now, so he's got all the parts like I mentioned last time, and he's actually already put 2-pack on it, so it's looking quite nice. It's finally coming together. Yeah, just one quick more look. I'm so happy with how everything turned out, especially the axles. They look brand new, so everything's looking really, really nice and new, and can't wait to put it on the car. If I did anything wrong, just let me know in the comments. I know you will anyway, because it's the internet, but if I actually did do something wrong, just let me know so I can fix it before something breaks. Thanks again. We'll see you in the next one.